Our next speaker has a delightful fan club with her. And Alba came to us from Spain as a licensed psychotherapist who found shortcomings in terms of some of the science and some of the studies in regard to meditation. She has, as you will hear, a long-standing Vipassana practice. And as she landed within our community here at Loyola Marymount, she obtained a position working in the student housing complex, serving as advisor to residential communities here. And her landlord, who also has been a father of our program in many ways, has been a real help with students that have housed with him in the neighborhood over the years, is here as well. And what I think we all have found so delightful about Alba is her professionalism, her humility, and her ceaseless hard work. Alba, thank you for...
So, before my presentation, I really need to say some words of gratitude. First for my professors, Chris, Lori, Urmila, even she's not here, Anna Funes, and Dermot, the Buddhist professor. So thank you so much for all this time in the program, for sharing all the knowledge and teachings in class. Second, I want to thank my family and friends that they're going to watch this somehow from Spain online, especially my parents and my sisters for being always there, even from the distance. And then I want to thank three people who are here tonight and they're very special to me. Chris already said, but Greg, thank you so much for being always there. And when I mean always, is always since I met you, so thank you. Second is Alex. Thank you so much for reminding me the important things in life, the value of friendship, for all your help and support during this time in the program. And third is Kevin, my boss and my friend from LMU Housing. So thank you for believing on me since you met me, and for, your words of support and help during this year have pushed me to do my best. So thank you so much. And yeah, having said that, I'm gonna start. So my thesis is an exploration of Vipassana meditation in light of the Yoga Sutra. And why this thesis? So 4 years ago, as a senior at university doing my degree in psychology, I conducted an intervention based on mindfulness for my final thesis. Mindfulness was, and still is, a boom in the field of Western psychology, and I had always been attracted to Eastern thought. So I saw the thesis at that time to go deeper into this field of study. However, I realized that most research about mindfulness was very simplistic and did not include many explanations about the origin and development of the practice. In addition to this, most mindfulness courses were taught by individuals who claimed to be experts, but who actually had very limited understanding of Eastern traditions. As a result, doubts and confusion arose, so moved by them, I took the decision to study Buddhism and Eastern philosophy to unveil the mysteries of the body and the mind. In a sense, this was the beginning 4 years ago for this master thesis. I have been exploring Buddhism and yoga intensively for the last years. I completed a yoga teaching training in Spain and spent many hours on the mat, practicing different postures, breathing exercises, and meditations. I explored a variety of lineages and teachers. Then, recommended by a close friend, I did my first 10-day Vipassana meditation course as taught by Goenka. At the end of the course, I experienced a deep sense of calm and quietness that was very appealing, especially after all the hectic years as an undergrad. And the benefits and the teaching of both yoga and Vipassana meditation fascinated me. So I wanted to study them further and study a search for programs. Then I found the Master of Arts in Yoga Study at LMU. During my time in the program, I have learned much more than I had ever imagined. I realized how vast this field of study is and how much more there is still to explore. My main practice has remained Vipassana as I learned it in the Goenka tradition because I found it very beneficial. For example, it helped me to face the challenges that arose being so far away from home. This thesis was taken as an opportunity to explore more in depth the Buddhist teachings of Vipassana and its similarities and differences with the yoga tradition. Buddhism looks different in the West than in the East. The West has less of a monastic population, many lay practitioners, and a strong focus on meditation practice. The teachings have gone far beyond their place of origin and are having an impact on millions of people's lives. As both Buddhism and yoga enter into dialogue with each other, as they plant seeds in modern secular culture, it is necessary that we understand these traditions as shifting descriptions of reality and not fixed truth untouched by cultural traditions. That is why in my thesis, first, I've done a sociological and historical analysis. So, although the academic literature about yoga and Buddhism is extensive, I have not found any specific studies that analyze the teachings of Goenka and compare them with yoga. Therefore, the information and discussions presented here could bring some light into the current academic debate. I argue that both meditation practice and text study are necessary to obtain a profound understanding of these traditions. This investigation is academic, but also provides a personal narrative, because I think that bringing together scholarly study and experiential practice might be the key for spiritual growth. So let me show you some pictures about this journey. This is the teacher training in Spain, the yoga teacher training. Here we have 2 yoga festivals at university. This is me. I volunteered the second year. It was whole weekend. Here, this is already in US, doing some karma yoga with Chris up in the canyon. And this one is in Venice Family Clinic. So I was part of volunteering in a clinic for patients with chronic pain. And then I'll show you some pictures about exploring Buddhism. It's a fun one. So, first, this one is about the Vipassana courses. This is the first one I did in 2015 in Barcelona. This is the second one in Italy. She was my teacher there. This one was just before coming to US because they opened, in Spain there are 2 Vipassana meditation centers. So they opened the second one just before I came, and I went for a few days to volunteer. And this is in the last one in California, so after the course I stayed for a few days and we were in the kitchen cleaning and cooking. Then exploring Buddhism in other places. We had the Buddhist course here at LMU with Dermot. Then this is a retreat I did in Shilai Temple, which is in close here. I love this picture because we were doing some similar to yoga exercises before the meditation. And here. And then the last picture is, this is the Tuesday group led by Maureen. So it has become my Sangha here, my spiritual community, because we gather every Tuesday and we practice together. And then there is a Dharma talk, and then we discuss how we apply the teachings in our daily lives. So let's go to the contents of the thesis. There are 2 parts. The first one is focused on history and sociology. So I will just say the main ideas. So Vipassana is the heart of Buddhist meditation. There are a variety of schools within Buddhism, and of course I cannot cover all of them, so I focus on Theravada Buddhism because the teachings of Goenka come from this tradition. And the underlying questions of Theravada Buddhism are deep, such as how can we explain and overcome suffering? How can we understand our place in society? Which are our obligations to others? And some of my questions that arose when I was in touch with other meditators, with yoga teachers, at the same time I was getting my license in counseling, were these ones. To what extent current practitioners are aware of the original goal of Vipassana? Is it enough using it for keeping a healthy mind and promoting personal growth as it is popularized in current times? So I think we need to go to the roots for answers. So I researched the chain of teachers of Goenka to understand how Vipassana meditation was spread all over the world. So it all started with Legi Sayadaw, and he was a Burmese monk. So he was the first one who taught this technique outside of the monastery. So he taught it to Saya Teji, who was a farmer living in a village next to Ledi's monastery. And Saya taught Sayaju Bakin, who was an accountant general of Burma for a few years. And Goenka was the teacher of Sayaju Bakin, was the student, of Sayaju Bakin for 14 years. He was a businessman, but after finding so much benefit from the practice, he devoted his life to spread it all over the world. So in 2000, Goenka did a pilgrimage to Burma, and all these lay practitioners follow him. And I included it here because you can find it in YouTube. It's called Dhammaland. And they actually visit the places where these teachers used to teach and live, and it's very nice. So the main idea of how it spread all over the world, it's also called the Insight Meditation Movement, the spread of Vipassana, is that it was in a monastery, in a Buddhist monastery. It spread to an early village, and then to the whole Burma and the whole world. Currently, there are more than 170 Vipassana meditation centers that teach the practice in this tradition. And in my thesis, I explain the main differences between Goenka's teachings and classical Theravada Buddhism. I cannot go in detail now, but I have a handout, so I'm gonna distribute it to you after. Just to have an idea of the most important thing, I'll show you some pictures. So here we have some Theravada monks chanting in a monastery. Here we have some young Theravada monks asking for food. They have to go every day and ask for food. And on the other hand, we have an example of a Vipassana meditation in Northern California. This is me. This is a lovely place. And this is how a meditation hall in Goenka's courses looks like. So we can have an idea of how different it is to lay Vipassana meditation as a monastic within a monastic community, as in classical Theravada Buddhism, from learning it as a lay practitioner as me. So I go into the second part of my thesis, which is a comparative study between the classical teachings of Patanjali in yoga and the contemporary teachings of Goenka in the Buddhist teachings. So I've distinguished four main areas that Goenka's teachings find emphasis. The first one is the cultivation of ethics. So in yoga, we have the yamas: non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, sexual restraint, non-possession, and the niyamas: purity, contentment, austerity, self-study, and dedication to Ishvara. They set the base for ethics and morality. And in Theravada Buddhism, usually 10 parameters are recognized: renunciation, morality, effort, wisdom and insight, patience, truthfulness, determination, pure and selfless love, equanimity, and generosity. So as you might notice, there are many differences, there are many similarities between them. So in my thesis, I go in detail about this. Then we have the practice of the Brahma Vihara. So Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra says that one way to clarify the mind results from the cultivation of friendliness towards the happy, metta, compassion for those who suffer, karuna, sympathetic joy for the good, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha, towards those who lack goodness. So the Brahma Vihara is a Buddhist practice that was incorporated by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra. Let's go to the second part that Goenka's teachings find emphasis is equanimity and awareness. So these are the main mental qualities to develop in meditation according to Goenka. He draws his teachings from the Satipatthana Sutta, which is in the Pali Canon and is common to all Buddhists, and the Visuddhimagga, Path of Purification, which is the main canonical source of Theravada Buddhism. And he has his own book on the Satipatthana Sutta. So traditionally, there are two sets of practices in Theravada Buddhism. The first one is concentrative meditation, Samadhi, Samatha, Bhavana. And Goenka teaches this one by guiding students to develop these two main mental qualities, equanimity and awareness, on the breath below the nostrils. And then the second set of practices inside meditation, of the actually Vipassana Panya Bhavana, and this one Goenka teaches it by guiding students to develop equanimity and awareness towards bodily sensations. So I argue that this parallels the yoga practice of dharana, because in the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali says concentration of the mind is its binding to a place. So in concentrative meditation, the mind is bound to the breath. The mind is focused there. And in insight meditation, the mind is bound to bodily sensations. So in both cases, this brings the meditator to a state where the fluctuations of the mind are stopped. And this is actually the definition of yoga in the Yoga Sutra. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So yoga is the restraint of the fluctuations of the mind. And both practices can lead to states of absorption or samadhi. Then in my thesis, I go into the discussion of awareness, and I explain the Samkhya yoga understandings versus the Buddhist ones. This part is very long, but what has fascinated me the most is that despite the differences between the systems, they are quite similar when they explain our psychology and the mental states that we as human beings experience. So, as I said, because I found this fascinating, I made another handout that I'm going to give to you at the end. And you can even use it for yourself as checking in with your own mental states. So you will see which ones are explained in Samkhya Yoga and which one the Buddhists recognize. And then another idea that I wanted to include here is that in both traditions, the detachment from the notion of the I is very important. In other words, that we need to overcome selfish concerns to progress in the spiritual path. And we just had an example with Alex to bring yoga to low-income communities. So the third area is the purification of the body-mind complex. So Goenka explains that one is purified when one follows morality, shila, concentration of the mind, samadhi, and panya, wisdom. And Patanjali distinguishes 5 main instances of purification. The niyama shaucha, which actually means purity. The practice of pranayama, all these breathing exercises that we have to purify body and mind. The cultivation of positive samskaras, and Patanjali lists many techniques for this one. The meditations on the elements, air, fire, water, air and space. And the moment of samadhi or samyak dristi, that moment of vision that gives one a glimpse, that burns the past karma and gives you a glimpse of what is beyond. And the fourth area in my comparative analysis is called focus on practice rather than beliefs. So Patanjali limits his theological discussion. We know that yoga is practiced by Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, and more. And he emphasizes ethical behavior, movement, and meditation. However, he does say that meditation might be guided or shaped by the notion of a deity, which he calls Ishta Devata. So one can choose his or her own deity ideal. And Goenka, to give you an idea of his perspectives, I'm just going to read a few of his quotes because I found them very interesting. So rather than converting people from one organized religion to another organized religion, we should try to convert people from misery to happiness, from bondage to liberation, and from cruelty to compassion. There cannot be peace in the world when people have anger and hatred in their hearts. Only with love and compassion in their heart is world peace attainable. When there is anger and hatred within, one becomes miserable, irrespectively of whether one is a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim. Let us focus on the commonalities of all religions, on the inner core of all religions, which is purity of heart. So he used Vipassana meditation for that goal, to achieve this purity of heart, mind, and body. And he was convinced about it. So I wanted to finish this presentation with this message of respect, accept, and coexist, because I just think it's very important in the world, especially at the present moment. So thank you so much. You have any questions?
Excellent. Questions, anybody?
I'm gonna pass the promise handouts. Okay. I put some work into them. So
I have a question.
Question back there.
I was curious about, since you've studied so much of the Vipassana meditation and your profession as a therapist, is there some benefit you can bring from what you learned here to apply to your job as a therapist, or like what kind of insights do you feel like you've developed since being in the program?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question for people who didn't hear it over there?
Yeah, he asked me if there is some benefit that I found in Vipassana to apply in my job and in psychotherapy, right?
Right, yeah.
So actually, I had 15 minutes, so I had to, what? Okay, I had 15 minutes, so I had to summarize a lot. But my background actually, it's in psychology, in social work, and I have worked much more as a counselor and psychologist than as a yoga teacher. Before, I was in NGOs, in this one, Psychologists Without Barriers, for example. It was when I was there, before coming to US, it was when I realized I also needed something to be very strong myself, because the situations I was facing were really extreme. Like, for example, I remember in the deportation center, when we were helping the people who were the people who were there, and I'm in very critical situations. So I went into yoga first for myself, because I needed something very strong to keep me sane when I was seeing all these difficult things in the world. But then I just fell in love with it, and I find, the more I researched, I saw that there was a lot of benefit, and I could also bring it into my patients in psychotherapy or as a counselor and use it on my way. So my thesis is focused more focused on philosophy, and because this master is in humanities. But actually what I do is, I'm a resident advisor. So what I do in my job is more social work, and of course I don't teach meditation now, but I try to apply the teachings of my daily life. So whatever, if it's in my relationships, job, studies, everywhere. And I do want to use it for patients, and that's why coming here has been amazing, because I had the chance to take other workshops and learn from different teachers. Like, for example, we learned Yoga Nidra I learned yoga therapy with Lori, so it has expanded much more the therapeutic aspects to then bring it back to the practice. But at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer, like Goenka and Patanjali, that what matters is to bring the teachers into life. So for the benefit of oneself and for the benefit of others. Yes, tell me. I have a Buddhist professor in my presentation, so.
So the distinction between Theravada teachings and Goenka's teachings, and the applicability of Goenka's teachings to a variety of non-Buddhist lay people, this kind of issue is, to me, problematic.
Yes, I agree.
One reason it's problematic is, so you can study Shila, morality, you can study Samadhi, meditative breathing techniques, and that's fine. But when we get to insight, or insight meditation, which is meant to lead to Buddhist understanding of wisdom, then we have a major problem. The major problem is insight meditation is meant to basically address the issue of the three marks, that the world is impermanent, that the world, the senses are dissatisfaction, and that there is no self. And that's not necessarily the same thing as saying we shouldn't be selfish. That's a whole different thing. So those three marks, it seems to me, ironically, our Goenka can't really teach if he's going by his own rhetoric. And this is also where the issue of belief and practice comes into it, because it simply won't make sense to somebody who, let's say, is a Catholic to believe that there is no self, because that's essentially denying the soul. to say things are impermanent is denying the soul. It's denying God also. So basically, where do you see this problem? How do you see this as an issue, or do you address this in your thesis?
Good. I had the same concerns, really very similar, and actually I took the thesis to go deeper into that. So in the first part, the history and sociology is much longer, and I had the chance to read the details of it, how each of the teachers that I show you, how each of them transmitted the practice, how each of them changed some things, why they did it, and it's, I mean, the situation is complex. There are many factors involved, for example, political factors, history, the situation in Burma, sociology, it's very broad. So I needed to know all that, because otherwise I'm like, why Goenka is telling me that this technique is for everyone and this is not Buddhism, and then he's teaching me what the Buddha taught, and then right, in the Goenka's courses, the first thing you do is to take refuge in Dhamma, in the Buddha, and in the Sangha. And this is actually what one does when one becomes a Buddhist. So I was myself telling, he's not teaching Buddhism, but I have to take refuge in the Buddha? So what is this? And so by studying his life, I could understand why he did it. And I came to the conclusion that he was very convinced that he could help people by the way he was doing it. And for example, the first time that Goenka went to India to teach Vipassana meditation, he went there to teach his mother, who was a Hindu, and then he started to teach Hindu people. Then he came to the West, and most people were Catholic. So for me, it was his strategy. This is quite simple answer. It's more complex, but that's one of the main reasons. And then also it's important that what I came to realize as well is that the way Goenka organization works is more complex than it might seem. So for example, if one goes and does one course, one single course, I think that might serve for everyone, no matter your beliefs, but I do agree with you that if you want to follow this path and if you want to go deeper into the teachings, there is much more to it. So what I found when I met many of these people, and I have friends who have done longer courses, I've been in touch with meditators. In Spain, I was very fortunate, and I volunteered in a course. I was the manager, and the teacher was the oldest in Spain, and she learned with Goenka. So that course was fascinating. And what I could see is that at the beginning it might start like at the beginning it might be similar for everyone, but those who choose to continue and keep doing longer courses, and they do go deeper into the teachings. So yeah, that was very helpful. And I can pass you my thesis. I go more in detail. For example, I even include one of the questions somebody asked Goenka. So do you teach Mahayana or Theravada? And I include his answer in my thesis. So he responds, I don't teach any yanas. I only teach Dhamma because that's what the Buddha taught. So I agree, that's very, we can argue about that. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I think you did a great job on your presentation. You made it personal, and you were very clear with your thoughts. My question is a little off field, but I think you addressed it a little bit with Dermot's question, given the current state of what's going on in Burma with the Rohingyas. And so this, you may or may not be able to answer this, but I feel like you have done some research on this. What do you feel, given the state of what's going on, how do you feel that these practices are being applied, if they are, if they're not? Or what's your personal take on the situation, or how it can be developed, given that it is coming from a Buddhist government, which is ironic given the principles and how they're being stated out here. So I just don't know, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, basically.
Yeah, of course, I thought a lot about it. I thought this was gonna come up because I'm really aware of the situation in Burma now, and I even emailed Dermot once, and I was telling him, see, this is all going on, what is happening, and we even had conversation about it because as Buddhists we were so even angry, and we were so that in the name of Buddhism these people are killing another minority. So I myself, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel that's not following any teachings. I mean, I share with you here tonight the principles, the paramis, and whoever follows that, I mean, you don't even have to be a Buddhist to know that you cannot just go after somebody because of their religion. And I saw some videos online and I read the news. Yeah, I even had to tell myself, okay, I cannot do much from here, but I do follow the situation, and I have talked about it with Dermot, Ralph as well, because he's also very interested. And as far as I know, the ones who are persecuting the most are the military, but they are supported and they have from some of the Buddhist community. But I mean, for me, those are not Buddhists real. I would say that simple. And then I was also interested on how do they do it, because Burma is a poor country. This is also something I wanted to learn in my research, and I talked to people who are from Burma and then came here. And I know, for example, that they have used a lot social media. Some of the nationalists, the Buddhist nationalists, have used a lot of social media to promote hatred and anger towards the Rohingya, towards the Muslim minority. So, yeah, I'm aware of it. I totally disagree with it, and I hope what worries me the most is what the international community is doing, because they're looking at it and they are not doing enough. This is what I think. So, yeah, we meditate for the benefit of everyone. So with that and the real actions, like there are some NGOs who are taking actions. For example, I know International Amnesty. I know that one because I was involved with them in Spain. They are doing some work, and there are others doing. So I hope it gets better, of course. I thought